Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Schuh Show. We're your hosts, Cohn and Rob Schuh. The All-Pro team is in. The participation report for the Niners playoff game is in. We're going to talk about that. We're going to become advice columnists. We're going to have a little consulting firm, and we're going to help both teams equally because we just go where the money is. Anyway, we're going to have a lot of stuff for you today. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing fantastic. You know, I've made some good money in my lifetime off of consulting fees. I look forward to providing some phenomenal advice to both sides because we don't discriminate. Whoever pays money, we'll take a little piece of it and we can move on from there.
Yeah, and we'll do it publicly so that everything we tell the Cowboys, the Niners know.
Fair enough. All above board. All above board.
Okay, let's start with the All-Pro selection and snubs. The Niners have 2 All-Pros. And neither one is Nick Bosa. It's Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams. I think both are deserving. I think it's interesting, though, that there are 2 All-Pro teams. First team and second team. Nick Bosa didn't make either one. Where do you want to start?
I mean, I think you got to start with the snub. You got to start with the disrespect because that gets us off on the right foot. The failure to recognize the chokehold move as a penalty in the league really held Nick Bosa back. And yes, that pun was fully intended there. Bosa, I mean, he put up those stats, drawing the highest double team rate of any edge defender in the league, only received 5 first team votes. It's ridiculous. I mean, the guy was tied for first in 21 tackles for loss, 32 quarterback hits, third in the league, 15 and a half sacks, which is 4th. I mean, it's ridiculous given the amount of double teams he faced, given the number of penalties that should have been called. Not that I'm saying that they, you know, the 49. I get it that you can't complain about the officials, but still, you got to recognize it.
Well, hold on. I'm going to say that I wouldn't have voted for him for first team All-Pro either. He was 4th in the league in sacks. I know he has other stats that are good, pressures and penalties drawn, but fact of the matter is TJ Watt had 22 and a half sacks and Robert Quinn had 18 and a half. Now, Robert Quinn wasn't even first team. He was second team because they made Myles Garrett first team with his 16 sacks. It should have been Quinn and Watt, in my opinion. But anyway, I'm cool with Bosa as a second team. But what's crazy is that he didn't even get that either. They gave it to Max Crosby and his 8 sacks. What? Why?
It's wild. It's wild. It must have been the PFF stat about the number of pressures that he had, which just seemed to be a multiplication issue. Like, we'll take the actual pressures, multiply it by 3, and that's the number we're going to use.
So anyway, Nick, totally snubbed. He should have been second team All-Pro. He was on pace to be first team All-Pro, but he just didn't have many sacks down the stretch. And TJ Watt had 22 and a half. So, I mean, hard to argue with that, but definitely hard to justify Max Crosby's spot. I want to say the other 2 guys. Deebo, I'm glad he got it. There are 3 first-team All-Pro wide receivers. They're Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, and Deebo, and he absolutely deserves to be one of those. And I think if it were only 2 wide receivers, it should be him and Devontae Adams. I don't care. I know that Cooper Kupp put up crazy numbers this year. I know, and he's good too.
That would be hard in my book. I mean, you do have to respect the crazy numbers that Kupp put up, but I agree. I mean, again, I think you have to look at these snubs and these awards in terms of what they mean to the team that they're on and the circumstances that they found themselves within throughout the season. So that goes back to my argument about Bosa, that context matters. You have to take into account the simple fact that he was facing those double teams on a regular basis more than anyone else in the league. And again, with Deebo Samuel, I think that the context matters here. You have to realize that he was the end-all, be-all force of the 49ers offense, that without Deebo Samuel, the San Francisco 49ers are not where they are right now. And the percentage of the offense that went through him is just staggering. And the physical nature of his playing style, the way in which he trucks people, is an absolute pleasure to watch.
I think he's the MVP of the league this year. He's not going to win it because the Niners are a wild card team. He's not a quarterback, but I think he's the best player in football right now. Let's talk about some other snubs real quick before we move on. George Kittle, not first team or second team. First team was Mark Andrews in Baltimore. Second team, Travis Kelce. I don't really have a problem with it. Kittle didn't put up the numbers that he normally does, although he's still a great blocker and still a great player. It's just, what are you supposed to do? Other guys had better resumes this year.
They do it, and again, it's the statistics that matter, right? It doesn't matter that he is a critical role for the 49ers. It doesn't matter he's the best
Still a
blocking
great
tight
player.
end in the league.
Still a great player.
Right.
Yeah.
If you look at, again, if you cover the teams individually, I think you have a different perspective on some of these players. And potentially I'm ill-informed on some of these players on other teams because I spend the vast majority of my time looking at the 49ers. But again, the critical role that George Kittle plays within the San Francisco offense and how he contributes to the running game, I think is not accounted for at all in that voting.
Another snub, maybe not a snub, but Fred Warner. He was an All-Pro in the past. This year, the All-Pro linebackers are Micah Parsons, Darius Leonard, Devondre Campbell. That's the first team. And then the second team, you got Demario Davis, Roquan Smith, and Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner again. So it was a down year from Fred Warner. His peers agreed. And then finally, Jimmy Ward. I mean, he's never gotten consideration, but I just want to list the safeties who got it over him. Justin Simmons, Micah Hyde, and Budda Baker were second team. And first team safeties were Kevin Byard and Jordan Poyer. Well, there you go. Jimmy Ward, he's as good as those guys, isn't he? I think he is.
Yeah, but both he and Fred Warner are missing those big splash plays, the statistics that jump off with turnovers, sacks, and that's a result of what they're asked to do within the defense. So again, I feel like it comes back to the context of this. If you look at the importance of the player to the team and the role that they played, we have a greater appreciation for Fred Warner and what he does on this defense. We have a greater appreciation for Jimmy Ward and the job he does as an eraser against people, and we'll probably be tasked with that yet again on Sunday.
Projection for who could be an All-Pro next year that hasn't been an All-Pro yet on this team. My mind goes immediately to the running back, Elijah Mitchell.
You're going with Elijah Mitchell?
I think next year.
That's fair.
If he plays 16 games, 17 games, I think he could do it.
You could also see a breakout season from Brandon Ayuk. I mean, we're looking at a completely different offense once Trey Lance comes along, potentially a lot more targets to go around. You would think that Debo is still going to continue to feast in this, but if you look at the second half of the season for Brandon Ayuk and project that out over a full 17 games and add on 20 to 30% to those statistics for the additional deep shots that you would assume Trey Lance is going to take, and a fair percentage of those going to Brandon Ayuk, he could very well end up a 1,500-yard receiver next year.
Neil says Nick Wright discussed about arson stat today. Yeah, I heard that he liked my arson analogy. Thank you, Nick.
It's a good one.
He must be a big fan of the show. I appreciate that. Ryan says Grant with the camera upgrade. No, I don't know. Maybe it's just the lighting. Niners win this one simply because of physicality. That's my belief. My worry is Jimmy Garoppolo run may delay Trey Lance. I don't know. It seems like everyone on the team is pretty openly saying like, well, this is the last ride for Jimmy. You know, like they say it in press conferences now. I think Jimmy would really have to win the Super Bowl to press that one.
Yeah, I thought that what you heard from Juice today in saying, I was sort of surprised that Jimmy shared that little tidbit about me coming up to him pregame and saying, hey, this could be our last ride together. I really think that was Juice saying like, hey, that sort of took away your leverage of possibly coming back here next year. You basically said straight up, this is the last ride.
Yeah. Eric says you got a proper mic, Grant. Rob's mic is still better. Rob's mic is way better. It's not even close. I think Rob has the best mic you could get. And I aspire to get that mic soon. I don't know why I'm waiting for it, but
I stole my inspiration from Joe Rogan.
Yeah, that's a nice. Yeah, I got to get that. Happy birthday, Grant. Sorry that I'm a day late. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. That's all good. All right, let's move on. So we were talking the other day about what Jimmy Garoppolo's worth in the trade. You said a second and a fourth, and I wrinkled my nose and said a fifth. So Peter King, also a big fan of the show, was inspired by our topic and then went and said mid-first round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo is what he's worth. Mid-first round pick. And I guess you wouldn't be that surprised, right? I'm just freaking shocked. But, I mean, Peter King is a whole lot more connected than me. So what do you think of this?
I would be a little shocked. I think that there's a big perceptual difference between giving up a second and a mid-round pick versus giving up a first. I think you have to prepare yourself as an organization. You have to prepare yourself for the backlash that you may get from your fan base in paying that type of a price tag for a quarterback that's a bit polarizing. I do think that the national view of Jimmy Garoppolo is significantly more positive than the local view of Jimmy Garoppolo. The national reporters don't have to deal with the emotional upset of consistent and inconsistent play. And so, it doesn't surprise me that they would have a slightly higher opinion, but I'd be shocked if a team gave up a first rounder for Jimmy Garoppolo. You'd have to be pretty desperate and get into a bidding war to get to that level, in my book.
Yeah, I think what's happening is a couple of things. Maybe the logic here is like, look, a mid first round pick is Mac Jones, theoretically, right?
Right.
And Mac Jones is an average NFL quarterback with the potential to get better. Jimmy Garoppolo is sort of like an average NFL. I mean, they're right there in like the, borderline good range,
yep.
which is a good place to start for a team that doesn't have a quarterback like that. So I guess if you're looking for a borderline good starter, because not every team has that, well, maybe this isn't the year to draft that guy. Like a lot of people are saying this draft is a little shaky. So
yes.
Maybe the quarterback you get mid first round isn't as good as Jimmy Garoppolo. That's the argument. I can see that. But what I keep coming back to is it's not just Jimmy you're trading for. It's Jimmy and his contract. And it just seems really rich to give up a mid first round pick and then give him $27 million. It's like a multiplier in my opinion. And so to me, unless the Niners pick up most of this money, they're not going to get the pick. Like they're not going to get the pick. He's going to be, I don't know. I could be wrong though. I could be wrong.
Yeah, two things come to mind when you say that. One is that you wonder what Mac Jones would have looked like on a team that's not the New England Patriots with Bill Belichick at the helm, right? You assume that Belichick got the most out of him this year, and he has looked good. And so that's fair that's the comparison. But in a quarterback class that is looked at widely as less talented than last year by a wide margin, I don't think you have that type of a caliber candidate available. And so it just shines a brighter light on Jimmy Garoppolo. And then when you compare the mentality of Jimmy Garoppolo and potentially the confidence a veteran player might have in bringing Jimmy in instead of trusting a rookie, when you're trying to sign some key free agents, when you're trying to excite your own free agents to sign a new deal, Jimmy Garoppolo seems like a more promising face and name to bring to the franchise than a 50-50 shot on a rookie quarterback.
Hey, we're going to get into our consulting business in a minute. And if any team out there is asking my opinion, I would strongly recommend you do not trade for Jimmy Garoppolo under any circumstances, any amount of draft picks. But that's just me. And you know what? If the Niners find a team out there that wants to give up a mid-first round pick for Jimmy, God love the 49ers. And salute to John Lynch and everyone in that organization for having the vision to pull this off that I didn't think they could do. So I would only praise them if they could pull that off. And I'm hoping they do, not because I'm a Niner fan, but because, draft time is a big moneymaker. And this would be the first year I've ever covered that they wouldn't have a first-round pick. And I'm a little nervous about that. So get that first-round pick. Find a way to get it. And if it's Jimmy, great.
Get it back.
Get that. I want that. The Dark Azrael says Debo is an all-pro wide back. I asked him, I said, if you met someone who didn't know you and they asked you a position you play, what would you say? And he said, I'm a wide back, which I thought was a great answer.
It's priceless.
It's priceless. He's a really funny, like sarcastic guy. I like him. He's hella smart.
Yeah, good personality.
Yeah, you get even a late first, you jump on it. Oh my God. Imagine turning it down. No, we need a mid first for Jimmy. Sorry.
That would be atrocious. It would surprise me. I do think the 49ers would have to eat some of that salary to get that first. I think it's going to be a contract extension in place between the new team and the agent for Jimmy Garoppolo. So I think they'll spread that cap hit out.
Eat PSJ's salary, trading to the Browns. Baker equals trash. This is the second time I've heard someone say PSJ, and I still don't know what it is. What's PSJ?
I have no idea what PSJ is.
If someone could explain what PSJ is, I'll come back to Scotty Martinez. I promise. I don't want to just take your $2, but I don't understand what PSJ. Someone have to explain. All right, now we're consultants. Rob and I are very smart, and the NFL pretty much hangs on every word we say. So it's rather than just kind of like let them eavesdrop, let's speak directly to them. Let's speak directly to Jimmy. Jimmy watches the show clearly all the time. Jimmy wants to know what he can do better in this game. What is your advice to Jimmy Garoppolo for Sunday? What would you tell him? Rob, what should I do? I can't lose this game, Rob. Tell him.
Advice to Jimmy Garoppolo would be to play it smart. I mean, the last thing the 49ers can do in this game is turn the ball over. And the Dallas Cowboys are phenomenal at forcing those turnovers. So for Jimmy, it has to be an intelligent game. He has to go into each snap and remind himself, much like he did on the sideline in overtime against the Los Angeles Rams. He reminded the team, hey, we're going for this win, but everybody needs to know that a tie advances us to the playoffs, right? It's about mindset going into that drive. For Jimmy Garoppolo, this game, he needs to be reminding himself each and every time he goes out on the field that a turnover could be the difference in this one. The 49ers should be relying upon their run game. We should see a heavy dose of Debo, of Elijah Mitchell, and some very well-targeted passes by Jimmy Garoppolo, but those need to be precise. They cannot be the type that get tipped over the middle because Dallas feasts on balls that are tipped. They will for sure come up with that turnover.
Yeah, Jimmy needs to understand that the Cowboys' game plan is to put the game in his hands, that they don't want to allow him to be a game manager. They want him to be a gunslinger. Go throw the ball 35, 40 times because they figure just – the percentages, the odds will be that he presents at least 2 or 3 opportunities where they can get the ball. I think that's pretty clear. Jimmy knows. Jimmy has to know that. And so what I would say is don't go into a shell, but don't do what you did last week either. For example, both interceptions, he got hit and just threw the ball up.
Right.
Don't do that, Jimmy. When you're getting hit, here's what you do. You put 2 hands on the ball and you take the sack because you're not running away from Micah Parsons. Just put 2 hands on the ball and take the sack and don't fumble and don't throw an interception. Because when you did fumble, what happened? George Kittle kind of got pushed back into you by that defensive lineman. I think it was Ashawn Robinson. And you tried to stiff arm Kittle and run away. No. Put 2 hands on the ball and go down, honestly, because you're not going to win the game, Jimmy. Debo's going to win the game. And Elijah Mitchell's going to win the game. You just have to not lose the game. And I think that's kind of freeing. Just don't lose it. So that's called putting 2 hands on the ball. I don't see that enough from you. You have these YOLO moments where I'm just don't do that. I like how you try to hit those small window throws when your feet are set. Go for it, but not when you're getting hit because you can't pull that off. So anyway, just be smart, like Rob said. I think that's
but he's also got to be able to move a little bit better in the pocket than he did the last couple of weeks. Yeah, he has got to have that pocket awareness because
he just plants himself in one spot. Rob,
yeah, step up.
Mac Jones does. It's the biggest difference between you and Mac Jones, Jimmy. You just stand there.
By the way, we have established in the chat what PSJ is. It is the nickname for said Jimmy Garoppolo and his tendency for dating certain individuals.
Oh, it's what Stephen A. Smith calls him, porn star
yes.
Jimmy. Got it. Okay, fair enough. So let's go back to that one then, because now that we know what we're talking about. Eat Jimmy Garoppolo's salary, trade in the Browns, Baker equals trash. But what's the point of – okay, all right. Here's the question then. Would you rather – so you're essentially paying $27 million for a first-round pick. That's very expensive. That's extremely expensive for a first-round pick. That's too expensive. I'm sorry. You got maybe half, depending on what the pick is.
Yeah, even that with the 49ers salary cap situation going into next year, there are only 31 players under contract. They've got to bring in an additional 20 players, including their draft class. They don't have that first rounder, but if they get the first rounder back, now they have to pay a first round salary as well. And so that shrinks that salary cap. I don't think they can afford to pay much, if any, of Jimmy's salary.
V says, did Bosa give motivation to Dallas by saying their O-line was definitely beatable? Yeah, it came out wrong. He was trying to say Trent Williams is the best, Tyron Smith is the best, but I mean, they've gotten beat before. What am I supposed to do? Say that? He was just trying to say my mindset is they're beatable. But just saying those words is oh, well, there you go. They're going to hear that. They're not going to appreciate that. Yes, I do. And I think, I don't know if you listened to Kyle today, but he made it a point to just praise the Cowboy. He was I don't think I even really said earlier in the week how good this team is. Can we just go back? He just went on, and I think that was him trying to sort of change the tone of what's coming out of his team right now. Because I think the Cowboys are probably right here, like, oh, gonna bully us, huh? Oh, definitely beatable, huh? Okay. And Kyle's like, whoa, we have Jimmy Garoppolo, guys. Let's chill.
There were good comments from Mike McDaniel yesterday as well, with effusive praise of Dallas. I mean, he was laying it on thick. So I think that is a strategy from he and Kyle.
Gabriel says, Grant, have you ever heard a head coach tell one of their players you're not ready? Pee-wee, high school pros. Never seen a team take a quarterback in 3 and not play him. Not even not play him, but basically say, you're not ready.
Yeah.
Now, I guess this is what the Chiefs did with Patrick Mahomes, but it's interesting.
Yeah, but when you look back at history, you also have to take into account that how many of those teams selecting at 3 were there at 3 because they were a terrible team, right? The 49ers had to give up a fortune to move up to 3 because they weren't a terrible team, because they had a pick in the teens, right? And so that's a different situation. You're coming into a team that is a much more veteran team, is much more capable of winning now, as proven by the fact that the San Francisco 49ers are in the playoffs.
Grant, what's your favorite Indian food dish? I'm going to throw a curveball here. I'm going to go with just Fijian Indian style food. It's my wife's family's food. I've never had it in a restaurant, but it's less soupy. It's more cooked down. It's way spicier. And I mean, their chicken curry is amazing. Their crab curry is amazing. So, I mean, all that stuff. My wife makes like a chicken, like a rice and chicken thing with that's spicy with the yogurt sauce. I love the yogurt, like the savory yogurt sauce.
Yeah, because that cools the heat for you.
Love that.
Yeah,
love that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you ever gone to Vic's Chat in Berkeley. Is just everything there is really good.
If you make it up to Portland, Bollywood Theater is the place to go. It's Indian street food. They have a couple of dishes. Paneer makhani is phenomenal, and the pork vindaloo is to die for.
I forget what it's called, but the one at Vic's Chat, there's this big puff. It's like a thing. It's a huge puff thing. It's like that. That's what it's called. Nice. Anyway, Voice Ad Agency says, I think I've been the hardest on our OC, Mike McDaniel. Now that I hear he might go to the Dolphins, I am already sad going to miss his crazy interviews. He's very smart. I'm not sure he's going to be an effective head coach. The head coach is there to communicate like the vision to the team and uphold the standard. And I think really, the smart people are kind of the people right underneath the head coach. Like, you don't have to be, how analytical was John Madden? You know what I mean? He was like the guy who wrote Boom and stuff. I'm just saying, like, if he can't communicate and people don't take him seriously, it won't work. And I think that's been a problem with Belichick's disciples. He's had a lot of smart people go out around and fail, right? Like Matt Patricia. Anyway, I'm not saying this guy's going to fail.
Yeah, Eric Mangini.
His schematic acumen means he's a great coordinator. It doesn't necessarily mean he'll be a great head coach.
Yes, I think it would be a mistake for him to step away right now. He still has some growth that he can attain with the 49ers. Stay around here, Mike.
Play action deep shot, the second play of the game. No, not with Jimmy. No. It's called hand off the first play of the game, hand off the second play of the game. No. They don't even do play action anymore with Jimmy. No,
nothing under center.
No. SF hasn't played 4 quarters of football since Atlanta. Won't win Sunday if they show up to play 2 quarters of football. Yes, this guy's absolutely right.
That's a very fair statement. If they do not play 60 full minutes against Dallas, it will be painful.
And they really snuck away with the win in LA last week. That was quite improbable what happened. Just saying.
What was it, like 0.4% chance at some point?
Yeah. Jim should go to the Steelers. They won't draft a rookie quarterback.
That's my take. I think the Steelers are the prime landing spot for Jimmy Garoppolo. And if that happens, I think he will have a successful season.
I say, as a consultant, Pittsburgh, instead of trading a first-round pick for the right to give Jimmy Garoppolo $27 million over the course of 1 or 2 years, go sign Jameis Winston for like $2 million coming off a torn ACL. Do that. That's my professional advice. Let's get back to our consultation business. Kyle Shanahan, big fan of the show, watching right now, most likely would like our advice. I mean, he's got his game plan set, but he knows that there's probably a couple of pointers that we could tell him right now that would increase his likelihood of winning. Rob, what would your advice be for Kyle for this Sunday?
I'd say, Kyle, don't hold anything back in getting the run game going. Do not use that motion early and often. I'm stealing this one from Mina Kimes. She threw out today. Dallas allows 6.1 yards per carry to teams that use motion on offense. Third worst in the league. Guess who uses the most motion on offense in the NFL? The San Francisco 49ers.
Where do you get a stat like that? I love that.
That's amazing.
Great,
that
amazing.
You get that stat when you have 17 people that work for you at ESPN and they do the research.
I mean, how many interns had to watch how many hours of football to figure? That's great though. There's motion. Oh, was that motion? Did that count as motion? It's motion. Anyway, that's great. That's what the Niners do. That bodes well.
Yeah, there's literally some dude whose job it is to watch every game in the NFL and be like, motion, no motion, motion, no motion.
Do. That's why we get such high rates for our consulting business. But here's what I would say, Kyle, like, don't overthink this. I know that Dan Quinn over there he's the X factor in this game because you feel like he knows what you're going to do. And you're like, well, if I know that he knows that I know that he knows what I'm going to do, don't do that, Kyle. Don't do that. You have the better team here. Make him who cares what he knows about your tendencies or whatever. Good. Now you're going to lose knowing my tendencies. Like, don't let him get you out of your game.
Yes.
Because we're going to talk to him next and I'm going to tell him how to get you. He already knows how and I'm going to reinforce it. That's what they're going to do because they know this run game of yours is pretty much unbeatable. Once you figured out that Deebo Samuel's a running back, you're essentially undefeated when you commit to it. So he's going to have to try to figure out a way to get in your head. So just remember that you're basically that you're 6-0 when Deebo Samuel gets 6 or more touches in a game. So that's your job, is to give him at least 6. You didn't do that in Tennessee. You gave him 5. The 6th might have been the touchdown that won the game. You never know because really he's averaging a touchdown every 7 touches, every 7.5. It's on you, Kyle. Make sure Deebo Samuel gets enough opportunities to be the best player in the league.
Kyle Shanahan, according to Steve Young, and I love the interview that he did with Matt Mayoko midseason that came out. I agree wholeheartedly. Kyle Shanahan is like a bloodhound. He goes after finding that blood in the water. He sniffs it out, finds that weakness in the defense, and then attacks it relentlessly. Well, whatever you need to do to find that weakness early, Kyle, whether it is varying your play calling to suss it out, you need to get on that and then be relentless in the attack of Dallas because you need to get out early on Dallas. They are a far better team when they're playing with a lead.
Bill's assistants go the a-hole route and it fails. Yeah, Bill Belichick. I don't think McDaniel will. That's not really his personality. Thanks, Randall. Appreciate it. Jimmy beats Dallas in playoffs. Washington will call. Washington. Ooh. That's a team that is itching to make a bad decision. I like it. Scotty
says that's Dallas, a franchise that loves bad decisions.
Oh, they've been majoring in bad decisions since 1999. Dallas 31st in giving up big play, second play deep one.
That goes back to the play action pass, taking that deep shot.
Yeah, man. If they start calling deep passes for Jimmy Garoppolo, that would be kind of out of the norm. But
I'm okay with it when we are between the 40s. If it's second and short between the 40s, by all means, take one shot, but you can't get behind and down in distance. If it's not 2nd and 4 or less, you can't waste that down because the San Francisco 49ers so far this year have shown that they're just not great at coming back when behind and down in distance.
Okay, here's where it's going to get weird. The Dallas Cowboys have now solicited our advice because it's so good. And they know that us talking to the Niners is giving the Niners an unfair advantage. So now they want it on the act. We're going to do this publicly so the Niners are abreast of and aware of what we're talking. But now we're going to tell the Cowboys what they need to do to win. And if you don't mind, I'm going to go first this time.
Please.
It's real simple. There's a couple of things that the Cowboys have to do. Let's start with their offense. They have the number 1 offense in the league, but they don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything on offense to beat the Niners. I know it sounds crazy, right? Tennessee didn't do anything on offense. What they did was not turn the ball over. They had some nice conversions and stuff, but they scored like 20 points or something. Like they basically had a bad offensive game. Their yards per play was terrible. They had some good conversions, but essentially they were like, we're not going to lose on offense. We're not turning the ball over. As opposed to the freaking Rams and Matthew Stafford, who just got impatient and was like, I haven't thrown 2 picks yet because I do that every week and did that down the stretch and just negated all the bad that Jimmy did. So just don't do that. Do the Ryan Tannehill Tennessee thing of just like, we're going against a good defense. Let's not lose it here. And then on defense, this is key. You gotta give Kyle what he calls a premium pass look. You have to stop the run. So what you could do is a front that has 6 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, or a front that has 4 defensive linemen and 4 linebackers. Something ridiculous. Something where Kyle looks at it and is like, "Are you kidding? Well, I have to throw against that. He won't let himself run against certain because it's like ridiculous. Like, what are you doing? Do that. Because what you do is you force the Niners to pass and you live with the results. There's going to be 2 or 3 drives where you feel like, man, that was way too easy. And you live with the results because over time, Jimmy's going to be Jimmy. Jimmy's always the same. That's what you do. You play those fronts. You get Kyle to abandon the run game, and then he's in the post game presser being like, well, I mean, the fronts that they showed is I have to pass. And you put the game in Jimmy's hands, and you don't lose it on offense. You let Jimmy lose a game. That's how you beat the 49ers.
That's interesting. Tempt Kyle Shanahan into a bad decision.
Oh, yeah. Arizona did it twice.
Yeah, twice. Right. Make it just too tempting. Put out the plate of milk and cookies and just make it look delicious. Set him up for it.
Yeah, a 4-4 front, a 6-2 front, something disrespectful. Just disrespectful. Because Kyle won't run into that. And you know what? The first drive might be a touchdown, and Kyle might expect you to back off. Don't back off. Play the percentages. Put the game in Jimmy. You might lose, because honestly, I think you're going to lose one way or another. You're going to lose if they can run on you. But if the game comes down to Jimmy, you got a chance.
It's interesting because that's almost as if with Kyle and his ability to smell blood in the water, it's almost as if you are asking the Dallas Cowboys to intentionally nick themselves a little bit, to draw a little blood, to tell Kyle where to attack, exactly where they want him to attack.
We're vulnerable. Throw on us. Because then you get Micah Parsons rushing the quarterback. Then you get the defense that's intercepted 26 passes. So while the Niners may get a lot of yards, that big play could be coming, and that's the percentages you got to play here. Maybe the Cowboys won't do it because they feel like we're the better team. We don't have to do stuff like that. I don't know, man. If you just play straight up on defense and let that mediocre run defense do its best against Elijah Mitchell and Debo, you're going to lose. So you might want to listen to what we're saying.
Yeah, if I were going same way you were and breaking it up offense versus defense, I see it a little bit differently from that Tennessee game. They found A.J. Brown and the fact that he was unstoppable from the late second quarter on and then just continued to target that. The Dallas Cowboys have 4 potential options that they could find. One of them is going to be a matchup that the 49ers are going to struggle with. They're quality pass catchers. Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, the emerging Cedric Wilson, Dalton Schultz. One of those will consistently have a matchup that you can go to on third down. And if they can extend those drives in the way that Tennessee did, eventually you're going to tire out that 49ers pass rush. They are not going to be as relentless as they are. The other piece of advice I would throw out there is forget which one of your frickin' running backs that you pay more money to. It doesn't matter which one of them is the higher paid of the two. The more dangerous is Pollard by a country mile. I mean, he has the explosive ability to hit the home run, and that's what the 49ers need to be cautious of. That's what the Cowboys have to attempt to pounce on.
You did a better job. Let me amend what I said. Don't do nothing on offense. That's silly. What I'm saying is if you're averaging 3 yards a carry running the ball, keep running the ball. Don't panic. Like, you don't want to start putting your game on tilt and playing into the Niners' hands because they want to control time of possession. So you got to keep running the ball. And then when you're in third and long because you're not running the ball very well, do what Tennessee did. Max protection, 6 blockers. You don't need 5 wide receivers in the pattern because you have CeeDee Lamb and you have Amari Cooper, who are just about as good as A.J. Brown. So you take your one-on-one shots on the outside on third and long, and you run the ball a lot, even if it's not super effective, because you don't want to turn the ball over. You want to limit your throws. You want to have max protection when you do throw, and you want to throw outside where it's not going to get picked to guys like CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. I mean, and you may not score more than 20 points, but you know what? You can win that way. You can win that way.
Amen. On defense, I would advise them to follow Deebo Samuel to the gold, right? He oftentimes either is the ball carrier or will determine who will be the ball carrier by following the pre-snap motion. I think that the Dallas Cowboys have an X factor in Micah Parsons. I had a great show on my channel today with the co-host of the pre and post game from the Dallas Cowboys. You should go check it out on my channel if you haven't already. Great insider info. Very few teams have been able to successfully hold up Micah Parsons. He has been disruptive throughout this season. You have to allow him to eat against the run game and Jimmy Garoppolo. You cannot get fooled by this motion that the 49ers will use. It's going to be on greater than 50% of the plays. You need to be sound on defense. Micah Parsons needs to be either chasing the mesh point or going after Jimmy Garoppolo. He has 20 tackles for a loss and 13 plus sacks on the year. A hell of a season for the rookie stud.
Todd says if you're going to play in Texas, you got to have a fiddle in the band, Debo. I guess. Thank you. Scotty says nice. Dallas wants to stack that box, need to spread them out. I'm saying, man, yeah, get Kyle to do some out of character stuff. Go empty, spread them out, pass a lot. Do that. That's what if I remember correctly, that's what Dan Quinn did in Atlanta 2 years ago when they won. They presented a 4-4. They had 4 linebackers on the field with we know you want to run the ball. We're going to be bigger than you. Yeah. And what happened in that game? Kittle caught like 15 passes, and the Niners were like, well, they're gonna back off eventually, right? We're keep hitting it with Kittle. No, we can live with that. We can live with that, and they won. And the Niners scored about 22 points. Yeah,
and Rich Madrid threw it out. They used 5 D linemen, 3 linebackers in the box. Those formations gave the 49ers fits, and they described it as something they hadn't seen on tape prior to that one. I do think that the key difference there is Grady Jarrett. The 49ers struggle with immense pressure up the gut, and Grady Jarrett is a stud, and thankfully, Dallas does not have someone in the middle like that.
Right. It's just the same principle as what Bill Belichick and Robert Saleh figured out with the Rams back when the Rams were a dominant run game. Like the Rams would come out in 3 wide receiver sets and expect to see nickel defenses, which are small and light, and run on them. And they did that for years with Todd Gurley and were effective. And eventually someone was like, why don't we just play our base defense? You know what I mean? Like, we're going to play our base defense. And if you want to throw, that's fine. And that worked. Like, you're a run first team. We're taking away that run game by playing bigger than you, like going one bigger. And that's basically what the Niners play with 2 wide receiver sets. So how do you go bigger than that? A 4-4, a 5-3, a 6-2. You take a safety off the field and bring in another lineman or linebacker. Do that. That's what you got to do. And you got to live with the results. If the Niners had a better quarterback, couldn't do that. But you got you're sort of you're in the Jimmy Garoppolo, Jared Goff level, and that's what teams are going to try to do. Now, Jimmy, you can make him pay. You can always make him pay. Thank you, David Butler.
I think that's the key, is that this gives them a slight edge. I don't think either team is going to dog walk the other one in this. This is going to be a tough matchup. It's going to be close.
I think so too. Know Your Personnel says Dallas has the number 1 offense because of those NFC lease games in the Atlanta game outside their conference. Their numbers are average. Yeah, man. I mean, they put up like 16 points against Denver. Denver's a good defense, but still.
Yeah, someone on Twitter actually did the math on this and took out both conference games from both teams, and the Niners were then scoring something like 27 point something per game, and the Cowboys were 26 point something. So it was a very close margin when you take the NFC East and the NFC West out of the equation.
Anthony Adams says we didn't have Mosley versus Tennessee. Keep that in mind. That is true, and that bodes well for this game. That's another reason I'm picking the Niners to win.
Even though I just told
the Cowboys what to do.
Yeah, Ambry Thomas had not risen up at that point.
Just keep in mind, Cowboys, even though I just laid out what you need to do to win, I'm still picking the 49ers, so take that with a grain of salt. If we lose bad, do we put in Trey? I predict they will not put Trey in this game unless Jimmy gets hurt.
Yeah, I questioned whether they would do that in the game against the Rams. And in thinking about it logically, I was glad that Kyle stuck with what he did. I mean, that's sort of a losing situation to put Lance into. That's potentially, you've spent this entire year propping him up, making sure that he didn't have a poor experience, and now you're going to go out there and throw him to the Wolves with no shot. That seems rough.
All right, so this Cowboys team, they're like the Rams in a lot of ways. 2 excellent receivers, excellent quarterback, and an offense that can go down the field. But the way I look at it is it's certainly a better run game. They have play action. The receivers are better than the Rams receivers, and the quarterback is better than the Rams quarterback. This is just a souped up Rams offense. And while Stafford threw 2 picks trying to go deep against the Niners, I'm not sure that Dak's going to do that. He doesn't throw a lot of picks. Do you think the Niners can take away the Cowboys' deep shots the way they took away the Rams' deep shots for the most part?
I think it's going to be challenging to do so because of that fact that Dak Prescott only has 10 interceptions on the year. I mean, almost a 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. I believe he finished up 37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions on the year. And that Dallas receiving core is very talented. I do think that the loss of Michael Gallup certainly hurts Dallas, as he was their best deep ball threat. And he, was gone most of the year, came back, and then tore his knee against Arizona. But I would expect some shots to Amari Cooper. Again, that was some of the inside info that I gained earlier today as far as who Dallas might target over the top in this offense. And, you would assume that they could get some success against San Francisco. I think the key here for the Niners will be to get enough pressure to force Dallas back into their short passing game, to get them back into short passes, screens, be able to get home so they don't have enough time to be able to take those shots. But that's dependent upon making Dallas one-dimensional. That means early in the game, they need to tie up Zeke and Pollard, and they cannot allow that 4.5 yards of carry. If Dallas is running the ball at 4.5 yards a clip, I think it's going to be near impossible to take away the deep shots.
Well, I think the Niners are going to have to stop the run with 7 in the box. I don't think they can bring down a safety. I think they got to play their safeties back and help the corners who are playing well. But I mean, it's another big test for Ambry Thomas. It's the second game back off a long layoff for Emmanuel Mosley. Like, I wouldn't just throw him in the deep end and be like, well, Ambry's good. We like Ambry. He's really good. He's got CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. Like, no problem. No, I would give him safety help. And I'm not really concerned about Ezekiel Elliott. I think Tony Pollard's good, but as you pointed out, they don't even give him the ball that much. You like implored them. You had to tell them. They don't do it. So I think the Niners actually can do a good enough job against the Cowboys with just 7 to take away the deep shots. If I'm wrong and they got to bring down Tart, then Ambry's going to have to make more plays.
Yeah, and this is, the first bout in the playoffs for the young rookie. And he had a lot of confidence coming off of that Rams game. And that's what you want to see going into the playoffs. But as Michael Irvin has said, he describes the playoffs as the tight, because everyone's cheeks get tight at that moment going into the playoffs, right?
I love Michael Irvin.
And typically players shrink, right? If you have playoff experience, you know what to expect. You go out there. But for a rookie, if he's not as wildly confident as he was coming out of that LA game, you would expect him to have some struggles. And the 49ers, for all the good that we've seen the last couple of weeks, have those pass interference penalties. And you could see them coming back up to bite them in this one if Dallas takes considerable deep shots.
Mario, thank you. AZ Gaming says, who's likely to have a bigger game, Jimmy or Zeke? That's a tough question. Go ahead. How do you compare him?
Between Jimmy Garoppolo or Ezekiel
I don't
Elliott?
expect Zeke to have a big game at all. I expect him to have
no. Of the two, I would expect Pollard to have a better game in yards per carry. So yeah, in that one, I'm going Jimmy for sure. Because I do think Dallas is going to listen to our advice and try to tempt Kyle into having Jimmy throw it.
Yeah. Any chance for Verrett or Mostert if SF makes a Super Bowl? I don't believe so.
No, I think they have both been officially out.
Azeez Al-Shaair is officially questionable for this game against the Cowboys. The Niners really are as healthy as they've ever been. They're remarkably healthy for this time of the year, but Azeez Al-Shaair was a really good player for them all year. And this team that they're facing, I mean, it's not a great run game, but it's certainly better than what they just faced in LA last year. I don't know what the hell that was. So what do you think his return would mean, and what do you think his absence would mean as well?
I think it's big either way. To me, Azeez emerged this year as a physical tone setter for this defense. And yeah, that cost them at times. He's a thumper, and he doesn't always wrap up. And so you do see the occasional missed tackle. But I believe that hitting Ezekiel Elliott in the mouth like that over and over and over again is going to be the key to shutting down that Dallas offense. And having a full stable of linebackers and some speed on the field, having Dre Greenlaw back is big too, but having Azeez out there is another factor in limiting Tony Pollard. He didn't play last week. He's supposedly pretty close to 100%. Again, I see him as the bigger threat coming out of the backfield, and I do think that the 49ers need to be flying around the field, and I think Azeez is more confident in that regard. He sees ball, gets ball.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that the Niners want Fred Warner's running mate to be super violent because even though Fred Warner is elite, I would call him more like a finesse linebacker. He's on the spectrum. He's better in coverage. I mean, I think usually linebackers are known for their violence and how they hit, and that's not Warner. That's Al-Shaair, and I think it's interesting. He really asserted himself with that play style this year. And as soon as he got hurt and Dre Greenlaw finally came back, what did Greenlaw do last week? He was out of control, right? He had multiple personal foul penalties, but after the game, a couple of days ago, someone asked Kyle, like, it goes without saying that Dre Greenlaw needs to rein it in a little bit, right? And Kyle's like, no, we love that. That was wonderful. It was a joy to have Dre Greenlaw back. And of course, we don't want those penalties, but it's a fine line. Like, they want that. And I think he got the message like, oh, that's how we're Azeez. You want to play like Azeez? I can play like Azeez. So I think Greenlaw can play like Azeez. He's maybe not quite as good, but it's pretty violent in the last game. We'll see.
Yes, I do think that he responded to that call. I think you're spot on that the 49ers prioritized Al-Shaair because of that physicality. Dre certainly saw that and answered the bell. I mean, it went beyond the whistle,
Foster. But that was the vision for Reuben Foster back in the
day. Fly around, hit, and for Quan Alexander as well.
Exactly.
To lay the wood.
I forgot he was even on the Niners. HBO says, happy birthday, Grant. Man, that was yesterday, but thanks, though. What are your X factors for the Niners on offense and defense? Right now, the X factor on offense is Juwan Jennings. That dude is like no one's covering him because they're so worried about Debo and Ayuk and Kittle. So he's like the new Kendrick Bourne for me. What do you think on offense?
I still got to go with Debo. Like, I don't care that that's who who the defense is keying on. I think he's absolutely what will dictate
That's
success.
Better. Yeah, Debo. And then on defense, how about K'Wan Williams coming back off a layoff?
That would be big. I like Jimmy Ward. I do think it's got to be somebody in the secondary. So I like your pick of K'Wan Williams. I'm going Jimmy Ward. We have to force them into a turnover. I mean, that will be the difference. Because you would imagine the Niners turn the ball over at least once, right? I mean, in most games, that's going to be the case. And they need to even that. They cannot be -1 in the turnover differential.
Jimmy's on a little bit of a Matthew Stafford streak right now, multiple turnovers in a row. So, yeah, I would have to expect it too, especially because – did I say especially because he hasn't been practicing fully. And, this is like a little bit of rusty Jimmy, slightly injured, slightly rusty Jimmy. Fully prepared Jimmy is a little mistake prone as well. So, yeah, I'd have to expect it. Parsons has plenty on his plate. Mitchell, Kittle, use check. My first play would be a play action wheel route to use check. Okay. My first play would be a run. I'm just saying that. That's a statement. Like, what, Kyle? Do you trust your run game? What's your first play going to be? Run or pass? What do you trust? Are you going to be an empty first play of the game? What are you going to do?
I would rather have him run, like you say, but I like that as the first pass play. I like that as a play call.
Because to me, the way I look at the Niners run game is when they're committed to it, like, it's unstoppable.
Yes.
They have answers for everything. Come on. Don't lose your nerve now. Don't lose your nerve now. You're not going to win the other way. You're not. You're 2 whatever when you have multiple turnovers. You got real lucky last week. That's not just play a mistake-free game on offense. Play that. Do that.
Set the tone.
Scotty says my biggest fear for this game is getting third down to death by Dak. SF had Stafford on 3rd and 7 all first half, and he consistently converted. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like what Dallas can do with the max protection stuff, all you need is those 2 wide receivers. Maybe a tight end down the middle, Dalton Schultz. But yeah, I'm curious to see if the Niners, if they're susceptible to this.
I just can't help but think of Scotty doesn't know. I don't know why that came to mind, but it did.
AZ Gaiman says, Grant, why didn't they give you All Pro? Snubbed. Because they don't really value quality control, which is really an epidemic around the league.
Yeah, it's an undervalued position.
Keneal says, hey, Keneal, is this the first game all year we've had Azeez, Dre, and Fred together? Well, maybe if Azeez plays. Also, we need to run it down their throats. Bosa was robbed for All Pro. Max Crosby, man, that's too freaking funny. Yeah, run it down their throats.
Keneal gets it.
Love you, Keneal. All right. What do you think the Niners' game plan is for Micah Parsons? How do they neutralize him? How do they attack him? How do they make sure he doesn't wreck the freaking game?
You got to treat him like teams treat Nick Bosa. He's got to be the focus for the 49ers. The Niners need to account for him at all times. You've got to be able to put in max protection. I don't care whether it is chipping him with juice, Kittle. I mean, it is going to negatively impact the potential game plan for George Kittle. He's going to be in there chipping on Parsons. But the loss of yards in not throwing to Kittle is less of a concern for me than the forced turnover when Micah Parsons is closing in on Jimmy Garoppolo, as you saw, and Jimmy guns one out with a hope and a prayer. You cannot have
tries
that
to hit
situation.
the Heisman on him and give him a stiff arm while he holds the ball away like he's his older brother or something. Nah, Jimmy.
No. So just like Bosa, he's not just dominant in the pass rush department. He's also highly effective in tackling for a loss. He was tied for first in the league with TJ Watt going into week 18, where he then didn't start. So again, you cannot let him get going. You have to accommodate for him at all phases of the game.
To me, it's real simple what the Niners need to do with Micah Parsons. And it's like the same thing we've been saying the entire show, but it's like, make him a run defender.
Ooh,
I mean, he's a great pass rusher, obviously. Make him a run defender. I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad run defender.
No,
but
he's not.
Run defense is hard work. It's like shoveling coal. It's exhausting. It's repetitive. It's not glamorous. When you make the play and do it well, no one's going to say, look at that superstar over there. I mean, it's not what you want to do. What he wants to do is rush the quarterback, get in the backfield, sack Jimmy, and, dance. That's what I would want to do. So make him, shovel coal all day. And I'm sure he'll do a great job, but that's the best you can do.
Yes, and when you look at his ability to tackle for loss, you also have to factor in the Niners' ability to break tackles. I mean, nobody does it like Elijah Mitchell. Nobody does it like Deebo Samuel. So you would think that when it's strength on strength like that, the 49ers would have the edge. And I agree with you. In those games, Nick Bosa is very dominant in the run game. But in those games where he has to rely on that skill set, he has less in the tank to get after the quarterback in the fourth quarter. And that's what you need.
You get double teams. Then you have to shed the block and make the tackle. You got to run down. You got to run to the one sideline, to the other side. It's exhausting. It's not fun. It's just what you got to. I mean, it's what you got to do.
Yeah.
But rushing the quarterback is exhilarating. I would imagine I didn't play football like that. I played tag football at recess, and I was really good though. So
Close
good.
enough.
When I couldn't get hit. I hate Euro Trip the movie because of that. Wait a second. I hate Euro Trip the movie because of everything other than that. That redeems the whole
highlight.
It's the best part of the movie by far.
For sure.
The rest of the movie is really, you could turn it off.
But if your name was Scotty, you might feel the same.
All right. What should the 49ers game plan be for Deebo Samuel? I mean, the way they've used him evolved throughout the season. Now we're in the playoffs. We mentioned how there's a bit of a magic number here. Every time in his career, all 6 times he's gotten at least 6 carries, they've won. So clearly that's a goal, but I think it goes beyond that.
It does, because the 49ers need their run game to be successful on Sunday. And most times in the second half of the season where the 49ers have had those dominant performances, it is because of the contributions of Deebo Samuel. So I think between the two focuses of whether he's a wide receiver or a running back, the greater importance here is getting that run game going, because it sets up everything else. Getting into third and manageable situations where the Niners have a higher percentage chance of extending the drive and controlling the clock is critical. Again, you can't get behind in down and distance. And so I'm looking for Deebo to be used in the backfield in very creative ways. When you can stay on track, on target, in down and distance, you're going to limit those obvious opportunities for takeaways by staying on schedule and stay away from being one-dimensional, thereby limiting the Dallas pass rush. If the 49ers fail to get the run game going, it will have a domino effect in this game. They will be forced into difficult situations. Jimmy will have to make difficult throws. He will be under pressure. To me, getting Deebo going in the run game is paramount.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I'm going to say something different here.
Please do.
I know 6 is the magic number, and that's great. Aim for 6. But I feel like you need to use Deebo Samuel as much as necessary.
Yes.
So this is like, if it's a close game, keep feeding him. Don't have some magic number. Like, don't cap him at 10 touches. Because I feel like they've been sort of trying to, and I get it, right? You got to pace him. You can't, if he breaks, the season's over. So I get that. And that's what I'm saying. Like, don't just give him 15 touches if you're blowing out Dallas. If you're winning big in the third quarter, maybe cool it on the runs. Because you got to do this again next week and the week after and the week. So if you got to give him 15 touches, do it. Don't lose, with him only getting 10 and thinking, well, maybe if we given him 15, we would have won. Don't let that happen. But at the same time, don't be up 20 and have Deebo Samuel get hurt. I guess that's all I'm saying.
No, I would agree. Yeah, I think that they need to replay Fred Warner's halftime speech against the Rams, right? They need that message of don't hold anything back. If we do not win this game, we don't play next week. So don't hold anything back in the tank. Don't believe that, oh, well, I'll get him next time. There is no next time if you don't win this game. So you must run Deebo as many times as necessary.
And I'm really, again, to me, I'm looking at him as this is the best player in football right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he will be next year. I mean, these things change constantly. He'll be 26 next year, and he'll be a whole different thing. But right now, he's the best player in football. Don't lose with the best player in football on your team. He can throw. Let him. He could score 3. He could have had the hat trick last week. He could have the hat trick this week. Don't be shy with Deebo Samuel, but also put him in the garage if the game's out of hand, because he's the whole season. He's the whole season. Him and Elijah.
Yeah, you got to get really creative with him. If I'm putting the over-under, if I say the over-under, if I set it at 7.5, Grant, where are you going with this one? Over or under? How many carries Deebo get?
Over.
Yeah.
Over.
I'm seeing double digit.
Ooh, that'd be cool. Chris says, give Wilson Jr. the ball. Also keep Mitchell fresh. Yeah, that's a good. Hey, man, what did he do to lose all? That's another thing, because if Elijah Mitchell runs out of gas, which that's his pattern, he'll have 3 or 4 good games and then get hurt because the Niners use him too much. He's a freaking rookie. I would say Jeff Wilson Jr. should get 5 carries here. I like Jeff Wilson Jr.
Yeah, when we have the 3-headed attack, that's when we push 30, 40 carries a game. And that's the type of game plan that we want.
Thank you. Agree. All right, well, it's time for me to go find a cab and get some barbecue out here in Dallas and experience the wonders of downtown Dallas. Because I'm chilling out here in Arlington, which is basically Six Flags. So see what Dallas is all about.
Yeah, get yourself into the big city. There is some dope barbecue in that town.
Yep. Now, I bet you all the dopest barbecue probably has like 3-hour waits by now. So maybe I'll have to go like figure that out tomorrow. But I could do something tonight, right?
I'm telling you, a good barbecue spot is going to be like a line, but it'll be quick moving. They mean business, right? Because they're smoking tons and tons of meat out there in the smoker, preparing hundreds of pounds of brisket. I mean, they will move you through efficiently.
I don't know what to expect from Texas. I've never really been out here before. I don't know.
It's a nice town. I was out there in 2014 for that game where we took over and Eric Reed had multiple picks. The Niners jumped up early. I'm looking for a similar result this weekend.
I was sitting next to a dude on the flight out here today. I'm dressed in my flying attire, which is my Adidas Superstar tracksuit, circa 1987 or whatever, 84. And dude next to me was wearing like cowboy boots. And I was like, well, California and Texas sitting side by side. Nice. Anyway, that was cool. Thanks for the show. Hey, Schuh, it's always a great time. This was a good show.
Always a pleasure.
If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to Rob Schuh's YouTube channel. It's A+. It's really phenomenal.
Appreciate it.
See you guys. I'll be back tomorrow. Come phone before the game starts.